Lonely Monk Productions. I don't know if y'all have heard Alibis by Jewel yet, but yo!
That's my Jawn! Hey yo, displace the guilt.
What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I'm your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Jawn Morant, a.k.a. John Hinckley, a.k.a. Nate yourself, a.k.a. Nate 3.0, back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I chat with David Jamison. David's got a new album entitled Late Bloomer dropping on May 6th, and guys, it is an absolute delight. We have a great conversation about, well, a great many things, and that is coming up in a bit. So here we are, and April is almost over. This year is flying, man. You know, this past weekend was Record Store Day, and much like Bandcamp Fridays, I love Record Store Day to see my community supported. In this case, independent record stores. For those that don't know, Record Store Day is an event every year where special vinyl and CD drops come out that are only available at independent retailers as a way to get people out and get their feet in the stores to spend some money. I had my eyes on so many releases this year, but even as the host of a wildly popular music podcast, well, your gentle narrator could not afford to buy up the block, so to speak. So, Saturday, I hit up the Rock Shop in the Plymouth Meeting Mall. It's the closest record store to me, and, they have an awesome collection of new and used vinyl. As I walked in, I immediately headed to the Record Store Day section and saw only one other cat perusing the wares, but in his hand was one of the main releases I came out for, the Replacements drop, Unsuitable for Airplay, the Lost KFAI concert. I had that pang of fear as I waited for him to step away so I could see if there were any others left. Did I miss my chance? Had I left the house 10 minutes earlier as I had planned, would it be in my hands and not his? Well, I waited my time quantum jumping and playing sliding doors in my head, and as soon as he walked away, I pounced. Boom! There it was. One copy left. Success! I wasn't gonna have to cut a bitch today. They had a few other releases that I had been eyeing up since the release announcements. The Tegan and Sara Still Jealous acoustic re-recording of So Jealous, the Handsome Boy Modeling School first album, and Melanie Chisholm's release Northern Star. What's that? Oh, all right, fine. I won't hide it. Northern Star is the solo debut from Mel C of the Spice Girls. Whatever. That was a dope album. Look, we're displacing the guilt and we're embracing the pleasure, okay? Yeah. Sunday, Katie came home from a trip to her sister's, and we made our way out to hit up the great Siren Records in Doylestown. And immediately, I spotted the Rentals Midnight Society release, and I snagged it with a quickness. That was probably my number one most desired drop this Record Store Day. Some more perusing, and I was able to grab the Golden Smog EP, but still no Jay Bennett and still no Lou Reed. But I did locate a Lee Andrews and the Hearts vinyl in the dollar bin for an epic score. For those of you who don't know, Lee Andrews is the father of Academy Award-winning director Amir Questlove Thompson. So that was a super cool get. My lovely lady picked up the Amy Winehouse remix album from last year's Record Store Day and a Cage the Elephant vinyl. So all in all, it was just a great weekend of musical treats. Then we headed to McGurk's for dinner, and while I was sitting there waiting for our waitress, I saw a Facebook notification from the Where Are You Jay Bennett Facebook page in response to my comment about being unable to track down a copy of the 2LP DVD combo that was one of the top 3 on my list of wants. And their comment said, quote, eBay is your friend. Well, of course. How silly. eBay is my friend. So, yeah, I ordered that release too. So I got almost my entire list of things I wanted from this year's Record Store Day. Though, I'm going to be honest, someone is going to have to talk me out of going back to the Rock Shop to get that Mel C album. My guest today is a bassist, percussionist, composer, producer who also just so happens to have a doctorate in biomedical engineering. Talk about a multi-hyphenate. He has played drums and percussion in the Johns Hopkins Jazz Band, the Johns Hopkins Symphony Orchestra, and currently in the Lansdowne Symphony Orchestra. 3 years ago, he began to teach himself how to play bass. 1 year later, he released the Heat Check EP, and 8 months after that, his first full-length project, Enjoy the Journey, an album that earned him a spot on the list of 12 Philadelphia artists to pick up on Bandcamp Friday, put together by WXPN. His latest release, Late Bloomer, due out on May 6th, is a beautiful album of funk, jazz, hip-hop, R&B, and soul, and features members of The Smooth Show and The Moon Jocks. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show, David Jamison. All right, so I'll give it a little bit here. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great David Jamison. David, thank you for joining us today on Yo, That's My Jawn.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
So before we get started and before I jump into anything here, I absolutely have to start off with the fact that on your new album, Spanish Jawn is my favorite track by far. And it's, I feel like it's almost telling by the name of the show, but man, it's such a great song. So,
you know, what's funny is that I struggled for a while trying to come up with a name for that song. And I went through I don't even know, probably 5-6 different iterations. And, you know, with a jazz song, you could name it whatever the hell you want because there's no lyrics to tie it to. If the song title doesn't match, there's no lyrics for it to not match. So I'm thinking of all kinds of stuff. And when I composed it, you know, I was thinking about the song Spanish Joint by D'Angelo.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, let's just call it Spanish Jawn. And there was a part of me that I was conflicted because I know, and I'm sure you know, especially with the name of this podcast, the word Jawn gets overused and abused.
Yes.
And I was like, man, do I really want to put this out there and potentially help contribute to a whole bunch of non-Philly people just saying Jawn for no good reason? But it just felt right. So I had to do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we were just talking the other day about, have you seen the billboard on 676 that the lawyer
you read my mind. I was actually about to ask you if you had seen that.
I saw it and I was like, oh, we might need to change shit up here. It's so bad.
It bothers me so much. Much.
It's rough. It's really rough. And especially something that I love so much. And just, you know, I used the name because it was the perfect encapsulation of what I wanted to get across. This whole project was just based on me loving things. And I just wanted people to talk about the things they love, you know, music and stuff like that. And the idea is you know, anything that makes you stop in your tracks and go, yo, that's that is my Jawn. So that's where it came from. And then that billboard really took it out of me.
Yeah, no, it's just sad because it's you know, when you use it properly, you are, it's cool. But then when you put a billboard up that says I'm John Morgan, it's just come on.
I know.
Stop it.
It's so corny. It's so corny. Well, let's jump in a Wayback Machine here. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about where'd you grow up?
Yeah, I was born in Southwest Philly. I was born in Hahnemann Hospital. Rest in peace to Hahnemann Hospital.
Oh, man.
Lived in Southwest Philly. This is in the mid '80s, and you know, most parts of Philly in the mid '80s, it was rough. And so my parents decided to move out to the suburbs. We moved to Yeadon when I was 3. And so that's where I spent the rest of my childhood. You know, I still say I'm from Philly. People who were born and raised their whole lives in Philly tend to remind me that, no, you grew up in Yeadon, but I still say I'm from Philly.
Yeah. Oh, totally. It's right there. What were your parents listening to when you were growing up? What kind of music was playing around the house?
It was a lot of, so in terms of radio, we're talking WDAS, and WJJZ. Again, Rest in peace,
Oh,
WJJZ. And it's funny because I play a lot of jazz music now, and it's what I gravitate towards. But I did not like it growing up as a younger kid, not at all. Like, my father would have it on in the car, and I was like, "Oh God, this is so boring. I don't like this." And of course, now I have much more of an appreciation for it. But WDAS, all of the R&B, classic soul. Of course, nowadays it's like R&B. What do they call R&B? Throwbacks, which just means like rap songs from the 90s, I guess.
Yeah,
and
late
maybe
90s.
they kind of get into like the early aughts a little bit, and it's like y'all were not playing this at that time, but now apparently that's the music that they play.
Yeah, it's funny too because I don't know if you saw it or if you follow John Morrison, but he just shared an old article where DAS was talking about moving into that old format, like of just avoiding hip hop and avoiding stuff like that because they were like, that's somebody else's lane, and we can't do that. And now it's just like it's almost interchangeable with anything else from the.
Yeah, it's crazy how much things have changed in, 15, 20 years at this point.
Yeah. What were you feeling while they were listening to jazz? You said you weren't really vibing with it, but what was your?
I mean, I definitely appreciated the stuff that came on like DAS, the R&B and stuff like that, the Luthers and, the Stevies and all that kind of stuff. Like I definitely love that music. And then me, myself, I was doing, I was more Power 99. And then, what was it? 103.9 when that first came on. Yeah. I mean, I was much more into hip hop R&B, obviously, given the time when I was growing up. So in addition to like your classic R&B, it was like your Nas's and your Jay-Z's, of course, getting introduced to like the Dirty South music in like the late 90s, early 2000s with like, Outkast and getting introduced to like UGK and stuff like that. So it's that kind of mismatch. And then, of course, there's gospel because, we grew up going to church. And even though I'm a heathen now, sorry, Mom, if you're listening, I definitely grew up listening to all that. So,
yeah. When did you start kind of gravitating towards making music? Like, were you taking any music lessons back then?
It's funny because in grade school, I actually resisted taking music lessons. Like my mom would try and push me, and I just wasn't really interested. As much as I listened to music, I just didn't really have much interest in trying to play it. Yeah. And it wasn't until maybe I'd say probably like around 8th grade. So end of grade school, right when I was about to go into high school, where I was thinking about trying to actually play. And that's when I started getting into drums and percussion.
Oh, that's cool. Like, were you taking lessons or did you play in school?
I played in school. So they have, they call it lab band for like people who are a beginner in music. So that's what I took in 9th grade. And then once you take that for, I think it's just one semester, and then you would move on to the regular concert band that the school had. And so I played percussion all throughout high school in terms of like a concert band format. And then my last 2 years there, I also played drums and percussion in the jazz band. And so that's really when the appreciation for the jazz music started building from that point. So you're talking, 16, 17 years old.
Yeah. What kind of drew you to the drums of all of the instruments?
It was the coolest one. Yeah. It was the coolest one. And I think, I'm sure there's something innate about, rhythm and all those kinds of things, but it was the coolest one. And so it was like being able to sit on this throne, and it's called a throne. I mean, come on. And being able to just, rock out on whatever. And you realize too, and I didn't know this at the time, but you realize as you continue playing music, like the drummer is the most important person in the band. Like they're not always getting the shine that they should be, but anybody who's in a band that has drums knows the drummer is the most important one.
It's definitely true, and like, I forget who I was talking to about it, but like, a bad drummer can ruin a great band very quickly, and you watch a drummer change and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this band sounds like, like a whole new piece of work, man. Like, no, the drum, like, all praise to drummers, man. Like, I have nothing but respect. I could never get, my 4 limbs to do different things to be able to play drums because my brain is just so like linear and focused. So I was always just a guitar player, but, so when you started in jazz band, did you have to play Birdland? Cause I feel like everybody had to play Birdland in jazz band. No.
I want to say yes.
Yeah.
I feel like I did. One of the ones that stuck out was it 25 or 6 to 4? That's what it's called. That's the one I probably remember enjoying the most that we played in jazz band in high school.
That's a great track, man. What high school was that?
This was Archmere Academy down in Claymont, Delaware.
Okay. So at that time, you're playing in band and stuff like that. Are you playing outside? Like, are you jamming with anybody, or is it just strictly school?
It's strictly school. I mean, honestly, and so it's funny because, the album that's coming out is called Late Bloomer. And a large part of the reason why is because I did not enter the quote unquote Philly music scene in that way until I was in my 30s. Like, I've been playing music since I was a teenager in some way, shape, or form. But in terms of like trying to form a band or, doing gigs or even just writing myself, I didn't start doing any of that until very recently.
Wow, that's incredibly fascinating. Like, was there a hesitation to it, or it didn't present itself?
No, it didn't present itself. It was one of those things where like I was just kind of happy doing what I was doing, show up and unload my percussion gear and do whatever I needed to do. And honestly, it wasn't really until I started picking up the bass that I got more into like, all right, let me actually explore what this music scene is about, meeting different people, learning where all the great spots are, and also getting into, actually writing and composing music.
Yeah. Did you play, where did you go to college?
I went to the Johns Hopkins down in Baltimore.
Did you play in the college band at all, or?
Yeah, so I played in a few different outfits. There was I filled in as a percussionist for the Hopkins Symphony Orchestra one semester, and we had a like student run musical theater group called the Barnstormers. I played drums for a few of their shows. I sung in the gospel choir. I cannot sing, but it's a choir. So, everybody else drowns me out, and I sing like bass and baritone. So you can't really hear me anyway. But I would always like kind of nudge the choir director to be like, hey, so can I like play with the musicians? Like, I can pull out like some bongos and just do whatever. And then he would humor me and let me do it occasionally. And then I did play for 1 or 2 semesters, again, drums in the jazz band there. So there's all these different pieces, that eventually I guess kind of came together.
Yeah, but you kept playing through it, like you kept engaged. What kind of shows did the Barnstormers put on that you played with?
Oh gosh, wow! You're trying to take me back now. I'm sure I still have like the little pamphlet that they give out at the show. I can't remember offhand though which shows we did.
I'm a ridiculous musical theater kind of fan. I kind of exposed that in the last episode, but yes, I love some musical theater. Playing those shows and stuff like that. Did you ever have any issue like performance issues live in those settings? Because there's some big crowds getting into college there.
I feel like with the jazz band and the musical theater, no. I think with the orchestra, it's funny because in orchestra, especially as a percussionist, I mean, you're generally the only one playing your instrument, right? You're not one of 15 or 20 violinists or,
Right.
one of 4 French horn players. Like, there are other people in the percussion section, obviously, but like there's one snare drum, there's one bass drum, there's one vibraphone. So when you mess up, it's pretty obvious that you've messed up. There's nobody to kind of cover over you to drown that out.
That's wild. The jazz band, like how many piece is that like at that time? Is that like a full one of those larger size ones, or?
It was on the smaller side. I mean, it was probably about, I want to say maybe 10 to 12, but full complement of like drums, bass, horns, guitar.
Okay. Okay. So through all this, what were you going to school for?
I actually went to school for mechanical engineering, so complete opposite end of the spectrum.
That is wild.
Yeah, so even though music is my passion and I've been doing it for a good long time now, I'm also a huge science nerd. And so, in high school, trying to think about what it is that I wanted to do for a living, entertain the idea of being a doctor, ultimately decided I didn't want to do that. But I was like, I like math and science. What can I do with that? And somebody at some point said engineer. And so that's basically what I went and did. I originally entered as a biomedical engineering major and switched to mechanical. And then when I went to grad school, ended up doing a biomedical degree. And that's, what I do for a living. But yeah, it's, again, complete opposite end of the spectrum.
That is so wild. And you have a PhD, correct?
I do. Yep.
So why am I not calling you doctor this whole time? Like that is a flex. Don't put that aside. That should be on the album title.
Somebody was like, "Oh yeah, you should call yourself Dr. J," and I'm like, we already have a Dr. J in Philly. Like, I don't want to step on the toes. So
that's awesome. So you graduate, you get your doctorate, and you're working. How does music re-enter your life? Like how do you keep it going after the leaving college?
Yeah, so in grad school, it was actually kind of a lull. I didn't play much at all for the 5 years I was there. Even though I was at, I came back home. I was at Drexel for grad school, but I guess just being so busy and, as a grad student, you're also you're not as tapped into like what's happening in the university and like the student body and all the different clubs and activities. And so even though Drexel had those same or similar opportunities that Hopkins had, I just didn't get into them. And so it really wasn't until I, defended my thesis and had finished up grad school that I was like, all right, I really need to be intentional about playing music again. Like, because I loved it and, I enjoyed it. And it felt like I was missing it. And so I I had looked up different, like community bands and community orchestras. And I found a couple and eventually ended up with Lansdowne Symphony Orchestra. And I've been playing with them now for, I think this is my 8th season now. I've been playing with them.
Wow.
On percussion. Yeah.
That's awesome. What what are those performances like? Like where are they held? Because I'd love to come check something like that out.
Yeah, we actually have a show on Sunday, May 1st. That's our next one. And we perform at Upper Darby Performing Arts Center. So that big old Performing Arts Center that's part of Upper Darby High School. That's where our performances are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. So how does this transition occur? Of however many a few years ago, where you decide, I guess drums are cool, and that's where the throne is. But now let me pick up the bass. Like, how? Where did?
Yeah, it's funny because some people master one instrument before they move on to another. I just decided to move on to a different instrument, and I shouldn't say move on because again, I still play drums and percussion, but I don't know. It was one of those things where it's sort of, again, similar to when I decided to start playing music in general and felt gravitated towards percussion. I think I've always kind of felt gravitated towards bass as well. Like I think about some of my favorite songs, and the first thing that comes to mind in a lot of cases is the bass line, or a song that I've never heard before. If it's a really dope bass line, like I'm drawn to that. Like, lyrics are cool. That guitar solo is great, but that bass line though, like that's where it's at. So I just, on a whim, decided to buy myself a Christmas present and get myself a bass guitar and start learning it. This was what was that, Christmas 2018, and
Jesus,
and just went from there.
It's absolutely insane because spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't heard David play, you're like a phenomenal bass player. So like the fact that you've only been playing for what 3-4 years now, like that's just absolutely mind numbing to me. Like I can't even imagine. Like did it? I'm gonna say it did, whether you say so or not. But did it come naturally? Like did it take a while to kind of pick up the mechanics or?
I will say this. I think that my background with percussion and drums and just the rhythm in general, I think has really helped me learn the bass quickly. Because when you think about it, the bass, to me anyway, is like that perfect link between the rhythm section and whoever is playing the main, lead melody. And so I have that rhythm part down, and that's the part that I, am kind of steeped in. And I think having that made learning the bass guitar easier for me.
That makes sense. Yeah, that connective tissue, it's kind of like living in both worlds of like, there is the melody, but it is also so tied to, the root of the song. Like, that's wild. I don't know that I've thought about it that way, but like it absolutely makes sense. How long was it until you were kind of starting to feel like composing your own pieces?
That was... Well, I started jotting things down. I'd say probably about maybe 6 to 9 months in. A lot of it was really born out of me just kind of messing around. I'd be practicing and just kind of messing around with something. I'd be like, that little lick sounded pretty good. Let me expand on that. And so I had all these little ideas that I would like, maybe record on like voice memos on my phone or something. And then they would just sit. And it honestly wasn't until the pandemic hit that I really decided, all right, let me take a good listen to what I've come up with so far and see what I can expand. Because at that point it went from just some interesting little licks, little groove or whatever to, all right, let me see if I can actually build a song around.
Yeah. I only know it as the first thing you put out, but was Kelly Drive the first thing you kind of fully put together there, or? It
was actually. Yep. That was the first one I was working on, again, just trying to learn like some basic, blues songs. And in doing so, I came up with that progression, and it has the same, 1 to 4 back to 1, 5, 4, 1 sort of progression that a lot of blues songs do with a little turnaround in there. But yeah, that's where it was born out of. That was the very first lick that I came up with that I actually developed into a song.
That's incredible, man. And like out the gate, like I'm so envious. I'm so envious. If I could play you the first song fully formed that I put together, well, we'll first say in 2022 we would have to take all of the lyrics away from it, but but no, it is definitely No Kelly Drive. That's for goddamn sure. Like,
well, let me ask you this though: how old were you when you wrote your first song?
Okay, I was like 15, I think, or something, like 14 or 15.
Right, and so I was more than double that age when I wrote this. So I think that some of it is just just the maturity of it and like understanding music in general.
Definitely true. Okay. You made me feel a little better. But
I tried.
Thanks. Thank you. When did you start like trying to play with other people on bass? Like were you hitting open mics and stuff like that? Or did you know anybody that you kind of just connected with and it's like, hey, we should get together and jam sometime? Or
yeah, I started going to open mics. So let's see, if I started playing, we'll say December 18, it was summer of 2019 that I started, going out in earnest and trying to like actually play a bass with other people and not just at home by myself. I had been out to Time, which is my favorite spot down there. Was it 13th and Sansom?
Sansom, yeah.
And there's so many great musicians that come out of that place. And one of my friends has a band called The Smooth Show. Just put out a plug. If you haven't heard them, you should definitely check them out. And I would actually sit in on percussion with them. And that's how I learned that Time had an open mic. And so I started in probably May or June of that year. So I've literally been playing bass for like 6-7 months, going to this open mic. And if you've ever been to Time for their open mic, I'll put it this way. Any open mic is going to have a good mix of, levels in terms of ability to play music. That's true. But Time is always consistently, to me, at the top. Like, you're going to still have some people that, you're like, all right, you're just starting out. But so many great talent, so much great talent that goes to those open mics, and it really is intimidating. And so again, imagine me with a bass. I'm not a singer-songwriter, right? I'm not a lead, so I'm not gonna like sit up there and like sing and play my guitar. I'm like, first of all, I need other instruments playing with me, and I was terrified, but I was like, I'm gonna do it. And just see where it goes. I made a point to like record myself when I would go up on stage at these open mics. I was so nervous that first time I didn't record it. And I'm glad, because it probably was trash. Not even gonna lie.
But how good did it feel?
Oh, it felt amazing. Yeah. And I kept coming back. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep getting better at this. And it's not just keep getting better, but it's also like the environment. Like it felt so good to be in there with all these other musicians from all different walks of life, and again, all different styles of music. And it's my favorite open mic. I mean, it's my favorite spot in general in the city, but it's my favorite open mic to go to for sure.
Well, and we're going to get to it in a bit here, but the Tuesdays at Time that closes out Late Bloomer is a first of all just an incredible jam, but I think like a beautiful homage to a spot that obviously means very much to you.
Thank you. I'm glad you heard that.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's absolutely incredible. So you lay down Kelly Drive, that you put that out, and then Heat Check So like at this point, like, are you feeling like, cause it is a heat check. Like, at this point, are you like, where's your confidence at? Because like, I gotta think it's pretty strong, by the time you get to that EP.
It was strong enough. As the name implies, especially for anybody that watches basketball, you start feeling yourself a little bit and you just say, you know what, I'm just going to pull up from 40 and take this shot and see what happens. And that's basically what that EP was. It came out, was that September of 2020? So we were still pretty much in the height of the pandemic and, kind of just coming out like the full lockdown phase. And I was just like, you know what, if I'm going to be stuck at home all spring and summer, why not just kind of see how this recording thing goes? And that's how that project was born.
It was recorded at home or?
It was. So with the exception of, I'm trying to think, there are 2 tracks with guitar on it. And, one of them also has some synth. And so a friend of mine, Nick, he recorded those also at home. But everything else was recorded by me in my basement with my little, 25 key MIDI keyboard and my bass.
That is crazy. What's your writing process like in something like that? Because I am a bit of a singer songwriter, so like that kind of idea makes sense to me because I'm just like, the song is just this core here, and then I just kind of layer stuff on top. But like creating like instrumentals and stuff like that is like especially like stuff that has like a improvisational feel, as jazz does. What's kind of like, does it all start with the bass?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, it's like I said before, like with Kelly Drive, it started out with a bass line, something I liked, recorded it, maybe came back to it days or even weeks later and was like, all right, I like this. What kind of vibe am I getting from it? What do I want to do with this bass line? And from there, if it's something that I want to explore further, usually I'll end up trying to layer drums on top of it. And that is, again, informed by, in most cases, again, what kind of vibe am I going for? Do I want more of a Latin feel? Do I want, a straight 4 on the floor? Do I want, a swing or something like that? It's kind of what the groove calls for and, just how I'm feeling. And then from there, still trying to stay true to whatever vibe I'm going for. And then, then I'll try and lay keys down on top of that just to get a basic chord structure. I'm by no means, a piano player, but I know enough theory, I guess, that I can put down chords where needed. And then I just think about, okay, well, what other instrumentation might I want on top of this? Do I want a lead guitar? Do I want a sax? Do I want, whatever the case may be? Usually when I'm getting to that point, then I'll probably outsource the rest of the recording to, whoever I have that's available that wants to lay something down.
That's crazy. So you put together Heat Check and you put that out. What was the reaction to it? Like, were you able to kind of share it with like the Time crew and stuff like like everybody from the open mics and all? Or
yeah, a little bit. I mean, so when it came out, again, this is fall 2020, and so it was like right. We were in that weird period where the case numbers for COVID had fallen and they were like right about to start creeping up again. And so I was able to go out to a couple open mics, in that early fall period and play a few tunes. And it was so great to just hear people reacting to it and liking what I had put out. But that was kind of short lived because again, that was, right. I don't even know what variant at this point. It's been so many of them, but whichever variant that was, decided to take off, late 2020. And so it was like stuff was getting shut back down again. And, so that made it tough. That made it tough.
Yeah. What was your pandemic life like? I mean, besides the, obvious, it was hell for everyone. But like, what was like, clearly you got super creative during it, and kind of hunkered down, but, were you able to work or?
I was. It's funny because I switched jobs right at the start of the pandemic. Like I left my job in, what was that? That was probably end of February 2020. And I remember going in for like exit interviews, and there's like a TV on outside the main conference room, and they were talking about like, oh, there's this COVID-19. You know how newscasters talk about a thing when it first starts? Like they talk about the internet and they're like, the internet.
Yeah.
And you hear that now and it sounds ridiculous that they said it that way. That's how they were talking about COVID-19 at that point. And, so of course, none of us knew it was going to turn into what it turned into. But anyway, I left that company end of February and started a new one, started working at a new company. In end of March. So literally like right after everything had shut down. Fortunately, it was, I was able to work remote. And so I will say that one of the things I'm like really grateful for is just being able to have maintained, my living during this, because so many people were affected, losing their jobs and losing their livelihoods. And, thankfully that hasn't been the case for me or my wife. We've both been gainfully employed throughout this whole thing. So it's, we've been fortunate. Like you said, COVID was and still is hell. But we've been able to maintain our health and our sanity for the most part. But
did you get weird at all? Because I feel like I got super weird during the pandemic.
I did, and I didn't notice it until I started getting back out, and I was like, "Oh wow, I'm awkward now. What happened?" I've never been
Yeah, it's so weird. Like I've always been a very social person, and now I'm just like, oh, I don't know that I want all these people here. Like,
right? And you're like, should we even all be together? Like, what? Is this right? I don't even know anymore.
It's so bizarre. It's this weird shared trauma, and I bring this up at my day job a lot, and like whenever things start getting kind of into a weird part, I'm like, can we all just take a minute and just accept how like the last 2 years has really just screwed everyone up? Like just accept it and say we don't know what we're doing because everything's so weird now, and we can all start in that place.
I wish more people would acknowledge that, because I feel like a lot of people are just like, no, we're just going to keep moving like this never happened. And it's like, no, that's not the healthy way to go about this. Like, I think we should all, regardless of like your, position on masks and vaccination and your tolerance level for being out and about, like, regardless of all that, let's just all accept the fact that like, we've been through a lot in these last 2 years.
We need to talk about Bruno. Like, COVID is not Bruno. We need to talk about Bruno. But no, so then, the heat check, you put that out, that and then you don't stop, and then Enjoy the Journey. You got a full length out, and that comes out May 21. Like, were you just like, well, we're locked down again, I guess I might as well compose crap load?
You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what happened. I mean, I had the funny part is some of the songs that are on Enjoy the Journey, I had actually started same process where I'm coming up with these different bass lines that that's interesting. And I came up with those while I was still in the process of like recording and doing the post-production for Heat Check. And like I said, COVID decided it didn't want to stop. So I'm back home still. And I'm like, all right, well, let's let's expand these. Let's see where it goes. And that's honestly where the title of the album came from, because it's like, all right, I'm on this like musical journey now, and let's just enjoy it and see where it goes. Like, I'm not a signed artist and not really trying to be one. And as much as I love music, and there's times when I daydream about quitting my job and just becoming a musician full time, like, I know that I do enjoy what I do for a living. And I'm happy in that. And so it's like, all right, this music thing, it's great. I love it. And I will do it for as long as I possibly can. And so let's just try a new thing and just see where it goes. If you listen to it, I think anyway, it's a little bit more experimental,
Mm-hmm.
trying out some different some different sounds on there and some different concepts. And like I said, it all just kind of ties into the overarching theme of like, all right, we're on this journey. Let's just try and enjoy it. Let's see where it goes.
That's awesome. And then so that comes out and that starts, that got some press from, I saw, XPN talking about it in their, their Bandcamp posts and stuff like that, which is phenomenal. We're like, did you start to get like a good response, from that? Like, was there any XPN boost to the album?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely see like the uptick in listens after that happened, because it's kind of like, oh, all right, well, XPN's legit, and they just co-signed him, so there must be something going on here. And I mean, I started getting more people being like, okay, I need looking for a bass player for such and such. Are you available? So that like those opportunities started happening a little bit more. Again, they were limited because we were still, in the pandemic. But definitely started getting a little bit more notoriety there. I think it's funny because I think about how, for me, I kind of did the opposite of what a lot of people do, which, a lot of people start out and they play gigs and they write music and they just have this, like, for lack of a better word, backlog of songs that they've written. And after they've kind of built a following from their shows, then they put out some music. I just decided to just put some music out there, and no one had ever heard of me. So yeah, I'm doing it in the reverse that most people do it.
It works, man. It worked. And then like you donated some of the proceeds from that album. Talk a little bit about that. What was the Black Project, right?
Yeah. So for the first two projects, I had donated. The first one, oh man, I can't actually remember the name of the foundation now. But I had donated money for when I released Heat Check, and then I donated a portion to the Black Project. And I had gotten, and I'm trying to actually think of how I got in contact with the founder of Black. Oh, a friend of mine introduced me to her. He does a lot of like beat mixtapes, and he had this really dope cover for one of them that he put out. And I was like, oh, who did that? Because I'm in the stage of thinking about, getting artwork done for my project, for Enjoy the Journey. He's like, oh, this is my homegirl, Rochelle. He's like, I'll put you in touch with her. And so we got to talking. And in addition to all the design and graphic design work that she does, she leads this foundation called the Black Project. They do a lot of work. She's based up in Boston. They do a lot of work surrounding literacy and exploration of the arts and stuff like that for kids. And so it was one of those things too, where it's like, we're in this pandemic. I don't do this for a living. Like, I'm not trying to release this music to pay the bills. And so why not use some of the proceeds to help out? Because as we alluded to earlier, it's kind of like we all could use a little help, especially in this time. So why not why not help out a worthy cause?
That's admirable as hell, man. I respect that a lot. Very, very cool. So like so that comes out, and then things start opening up again. Are you able to start to play those songs out?
Yeah, I played a few of them. I played Midnight Marauder. That one was a lot of fun. I think that's probably my favorite one on that project. So I had a chance to play that one. I actually did. This wasn't playing out, but I did like a little Zoom listening party for like friends and family and stuff. So that was really cool to just be able to like, because for me, I want to be able to like share the music and like just make it a communal experience.
Yeah.
And so it was fun for me to be able to have that experience of like, all right, we're all going to get together, in this case, not in person, but on Zoom, and just I'll talk about like the creative process of the album, like what songs influenced this particular track, or, you know, how did this particular idea come about for this other track here. And so it was great to be able to do that. But getting back to your question, yeah, you know, I went back to doing the open mics and things like that. Had a few chances to start playing some of those tracks. And because I can't seem to stop for some reason, again, was writing new songs while I was in post-production for Enjoy the Journey. I'm writing new songs for what eventually became Late Bloomer, and actually had a chance to do Spanish Jawn before it had that name. Was able to do that one at times. So that was a lot of fun. That was like, I'm still kind of ironing out the kinks of this song and just kind of want to see where it goes, sort of thing.
Yeah. So, you know, bringing us to Late Bloomer, which, ladies and gentlemen, May 6th, make sure you are checking that out, and, you know, jump on Bandcamp and buy that and all the rest, man. Like I said, yeah, I'm an enormous fan of your output right now. Like, it's very inspirational, and like, it just sounds really great. Like, it sounds really great. But moving to Late Bloomer, you know, are kind of out of the bedroom self, and you recorded this with the band in a live, kind of almost live to tape setting. Tell me a little bit about the process of, you know, that transition. Like, did it feel fantastic to be able to kind of emote with other players?
The short answer is hell yes. The long answer is, you know, so listen, the first two projects were all done in my basement. And, you know, again, even though there are some other artists that appear on there, they're doing those parts remotely and sending them back. And I had said to myself, when I put out Enjoy the Journey, I was like, all right, whatever this next project is, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing it in a studio with a live band, because it was important to me. Like I said earlier, that communal experience and just being able to like make music in that moment. Obviously, you have a song that you've crafted, right? But ultimately, the music is made in that moment, regardless of what the, you know, chord chart or the lead sheet says, regardless of how many times you rehearsed it. Like, it's made in that moment. And thinking about, you know, the music that I listened to that inspired that album, you know, is a lot of older, mostly jazz music, and even some more recent stuff, like not terribly recent, but more recent than 60s and 70s, you know, like Voodoo, for instance. And just hearing about like how that album was made, and, you know, people just kind of coming in and out of the room and bouncing ideas off each other. And I wanted that experience. So I had the songs written and just kind of sat on them until it was like, all right, these case numbers are going down enough where I feel comfortable being in a room with a bunch of people for a few hours. in order to be able to record it. And so I knew who I wanted on the album. Thankfully, they were all available, and we made it happen, man. I think what you hear on this project is it's exactly, you know, that spontaneity that you just, quite frankly, you're not going to get when you are recording things in silos.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you mentioned voodoo and stuff like that. There is definitely, you know, the occasional song that has that kind of neo soul feel to it. But then there's also, you know, like Spanish Jawn and stuff like that. Like, what kind of draws your attention as you're putting the bass? Like, do you let the bass line kind of dictate where you're headed with that, or are you like, let me sit down and see if I can write, you know, a neo soul song or you know, kind of a hip hop track like Rap Snacks, or, you know, like, are you consciously sitting down to kind of fit that mold or like write something like that, or are you letting the bass tell you?
No, I let the bass tell me.
Yeah.
It's what I'm feeling at the moment, and what I've started doing with my, you know, songwriting process, or really my my pre-production process, is like, I will pull together songs that just kind of speak to me in the moment, and just put them in a little playlist, and periodically just go back and listen to them and think about, like, okay, what inspires me about this song? You know, is it just the overall feel of the song? Is it something about the drums in the song? Is it something that the guitar is doing that speaks to me? And just, again, being able to kind of pull those pieces together. And so it's not a thing where I'm sitting down and being like, all right, you know what, this album definitely needs a rap track. Let me put down a rap track. No, it's like, all right, I just did that little doom 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 doom. And I was like, okay, I like this. It's super simple, right? The bass line is incredibly simple, but I started doing it, and I was like, all right, you know what? I'm in front of my computer while I'm practicing. I got, you know, Logic open. I'm like, all right, let me play around with a little drum track in here and put one down, and did the bass line. I was like, okay, I like that. Let me record the bass line now. And then that's basically how that song was born. It's super simple. It actually, in some ways, kind of harkens back to like some of the older, you know, hip hop, where I mean, you think about early hip hop, and it's born out of, you know, those breaks in like your funk music and your disco music. And a lot of that is like percussive. It's the backline, right? It's the percussion, it's the drums, it's the bass, maybe some rhythm guitar. And that's what I wanted for that song. I wanted to really keep it simple. I had actually kept racking my brain about being like, oh, what other little elements can I add? And then ultimately I was just like, no, I'm not going to. It's going to be those three, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, other than the lyrics.
It definitely has a perfect pocket for it, to the point where, like, I know there's only two people rapping on it, but I feel like it definitely has the feeling of, like, if you were at an open mic, it could very easily snowball into like a posse cut or like a cypher. Like it's tight like that. You,
again, I'm very glad that you heard that in the song, because that is exactly the vibe that I was going for. It's like, all right, you know what, we got to this point where a beat just happened and a bass line got put on top of it, and now somebody's coming up to the mic and rapping, and that's the feel that I wanted that song to have.
That's great. Also, I gotta commend you for a perfect "Ooh, David" to open the song up. That's fantastic.
That is courtesy of my better half. She is not a huge fan of it, but I was like, listen, when I asked you to record it, I said, I'm going to use this on a song. And I don't think she believed me. And now it is on a song for everyone to hear.
Well, it fits perfectly. It is great. It is so great. Here's the deal. Here's another thing. I have to admit, when I first heard, it's almost embarrassing. When I first heard "She Don't Love Me," I was like, "Man, this is a great blues song. That girl really did him dirty." And then and then I'm reading the press and all, and I'm like, "Oh, right, America. Yep. Yeah. I got it." Like, but I felt so dumb because like it's so clear as day, and it is perfect. Like it is so perfect, perfect encapsulation of just bullshit. I mean, like just the. But tell me a little bit about the process of putting that together, because like I said, like it's seemingly like just a tight blues song, but works so perfectly and is just full of levels.
Yeah, so from a instrumental perspective, that song it started with the bass line. I had actually come up with that one right around the time when I was writing Kelly Drive, but it was one of those songs where it felt like it needed that like real old school blues, like down south blues, country blues feel. And I could not get that sound that I was looking for from just, again, throwing a automated drum track into Logic and adding the bass on top. Like I knew it needed a full band. And so I sat on it for a while. And then in the summer of 2020, when, excuse me, it was all the riots were happening across the country. I decided to try and sit and actually write lyrics. I had never sat to write lyrics before. But it just felt as, again, it's like a thing that I felt it in my heart and felt like I needed to get it out. Ultimately, those lyrics did not actually end up in the song, but that's where the concept of the song was born. When it came time to actually, complete the song, from a lyric perspective, I had asked my friend Dane, who, incredible, multi-hyphenated guy, plays all different instruments and sings really well, but also has an amazing knack for writing. And I was like, I know he's the guy that could pen lyrics to this that would work and that would really fit in the moment. And so I actually sent him my own draft lyrics, or actually, no, you know what? When I talked to him, I said, here's the concept that I want. I was like, I can send you these lyrics, or if you don't want me to color your opinion at all, I'm literally just going to leave you with that nugget of it's a song about a Black person's relationship with America, and I'll send you the instrumental and you run with it. And he decided to do the latter. And literally I sent him the instrument. Like we talked on the phone about the concept for the song. I sent him the instrumental, I'm assuming that night. And like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days later, he comes back with the lyrics as they are in the actual song, in the released version, sent me a demo with him singing it. And I was like, that's perfect. Yeah, this is exactly what I was looking for. And some of the things he talks about in there, some of the pieces about like, she just like, she won't let up. She won't listen. Like those things I had written myself. And so it was cool to see like my little draft lyrics and then see what he came up with. And just from that little nugget of here's what I'm going for in this song, that parallel that was made. It was great to see. And I'm so happy with how that song turned out. But I just want to make you feel better. You are not the only person that thought it was just a simple blues song about, a really bad breakup. It is a song about a bad relationship, just not the one that you would originally think about.
Dude, it was like when, the end of The Usual Suspects, when Kevin Spacey starts walking normal and he turns that foot and he starts that, like, that was like, I was like, oh, Like, yeah.
Yeah, when it hits you, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
And I immediately had to put it on again, and then I was like, "You are so dumb. You are a dumb person." Like, I was so mad at myself. But it is a powerful and beautiful song. So when you know, getting together with the band and stuff like that, what did anything change from like the framework of what you had composed? Like, did anything come to life or surprise you?
I think the best example of, you know, again, making music in the moment and how it can differ from what you originally wanted is Spanish Jawn, because well, first of all, that main melody that the sax plays, you know, I had written that, again, just using like a virtual instrument sax with Logic, and Stephen Mitnall, the saxophone player on the album, he took it and he actually shifted the phrases back by an eighth note. And then when he originally played it, I was like, but that's not how I wrote it. And then I was like, but you know what? The whole purpose of this is like for us to bring our respective like parts of ourselves together in this song. And so I was like, you know what? Roll with it. And now I like it better than the original, you know, how the melody is that I did. And again, it's the actual notes themselves are all the same. It's literally just like each of those little phrases is like kind of shifted back by an eighth note. And I love that part of it. The other thing too is, you know, we call it a reprise after that final, you know, downbeat and that sustained note. And then that guitar comes back in. I mean, that was all improvised.
Really?
That was all improvised. That part was not written at all. It literally, we had one rehearsal before we actually recorded everything. It was like a week prior to the recording session. And we play through the song, and then Nick, the guitar player, just starts strumming that rhythm that you hear. And then David Criswell, the keys player, comes in with the sound. That was a terrible impression, but when you hear the song, you'll know what I'm talking about. And then the drums come in, and I'm like, oh, all right, I guess we're just jamming now. And so I started playing, and thankfully I had the foresight to record this rehearsal. And then we finished, and I'm like, okay, that's going on the album. And so we just kind of on the spot, like arranged that part. And then when we got to the actual recording session, we let it rip.
That's hot. That is so hot. Yeah, that's like, you know, I don't know if you have heard this phrase before, but that's kind of my Jawn on the album. That's I love that track. I absolutely love that track. So are you guys gonna be able to are you planning any live performances of the album, or?
Yeah, I have one actually on the release day. So it's a release show, Friday, May 6th. It's at the Royal. It's the spot out in Glenside. So I'll be performing there with a quartet. And then, so the Smooth Show band and 3 of the members of the Smooth Show were on this album. They have their own show at Time on, May 20th. It's a Friday. So I'm going to sit in and play a couple of the tunes from the album. It's gonna be a good time.
That's awesome. I definitely will have to try to make one of those. Because like I said, this album, like it is the perfect, like my day job, I'm doing like a lot of portal work and Excel sheets and stuff. And it is the perfect album to put on. Like it definitely is a soothing vibe. And I am a fan. Like I love it. Kudos, man.
Thank you.
What a great release. And I can't wait for people to be able to hear it. At this time, I'd like to put you through the Jawntlet, if you like. These are the standard questions that I ask all of my guests, which starts with the one hit wonders. And it's just the verses. You're just picking, who's your favorite. First one, who do you got? Billy Joel or Elton John?
Oh, I can't go against Benny and the Jets, so I gotta go Elton. I gotta go Elton John.
Did you have you ever seen the or heard the Biz Markie version of Benny and the Jets? It's the greatest thing ever recorded.
I don't think I have.
It's on.
And now I got to go check it out.
Yeah, it's on the Beastie Boys anthology, but he also performed it on the Chris Rock show way back in the day when Chris Rock had that show on HBO. And that live performance, the first time I saw it, I was just like, I feel like I just witnessed greatness. Like there were so many great performances. That was the first time I saw Outkast do Bombs Over Baghdad was on the Chris Rock show. Like he just had like the greatest musical guests back then.
What's funny is that my introduction into that song was not the Elton John version. Mary J. Blige has a song called Deep Inside, and it samples Benny and the Jets. And I don't even remember how I found out that it samples Benny and the Jets, but at some point I did. And I was like, well, let me check out this Benny and the Jets song. And I was like, oh, this is incredible.
That's cool. That is so cool. Yeah, I can. What song did I just find recently that I was like, oh, that's a sample? Damn, I'm not going to be able to remember, but there was something like, and then I went and found it and I was like, I think I like this original version better. And like, I can't believe it because like, it was something like ubiquitous too, like something I've listened to my whole life, and I was just like, I never knew that was a sample. Like,
right.
Great when that happens. Number 2, Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Ooh, I think I'm gonna go Joan Jett because Joan Jett is actually local.
Yes.
So I gotta go with the hometown girl.
I like it. The next one, Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner?
I'm just gonna come out on the record and say I don't like you for this question, trying to make me choose between these two legends. If I have to choose, I'm going to go with the Queen of Soul. I got to go with Aretha.
Yeah. The I think I've mentioned this before, but the reason that one came in here was I don't know if you heard it was like at the Grammys a few years ago, a long time ago now, but that Beyonce referred to Tina Turner as the Queen. I guess Aretha got pissed about it.
Oh right, yep.
So that's how that one made its way in here. The next one, Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
I'm going with Nirvana just off the strength of Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah, I feel it.
I'm not a huge rock guy, I'm gonna be honest, but I love that song.
It's a banger. It is definitely a banger. Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks?
Ooh. Man, again, tough. I'm gonna go Stevie Nicks though.
Okay,
that's what my gut's telling me.
Okay, the big one, the cliche one, Beatles or the Stones?
Again, this was hard. I don't want to say the Beatles because it's like I feel like everybody would pick the Beatles, but also I'm gonna pick the Beatles.
Yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense. I'm gonna throw one in here specifically for you as a jazz guy, and it's not a gotcha question, but it kind of is. Miles or Coltrane?
Oh, that's so tough. I'm gonna go Philly and say Coltrane.
I like it. Someone one time asked me to choose between Kind of Blue and Love Supreme, and I said that I picked Kind of Blue, but it was suspect because Coltrane's on it. So I was like, it's the only reason why. It's like the get out of jail free card. I was like, I don't feel like I have to choose between the two because I'm kind of choosing both.
That's a good way. That's a good cheat code. I like that.
Yeah. You can put that one in your pocket. You got that. The final one hit wonder: Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
I can't go against Bohemian Rhapsody. That's. I mean, they're both classics, but that is a classic.
Yeah, it's epic. It's so epic. The next one is the top 10 countdown. I don't have to tell you this, Jawn, you can make it be whatever you want. It doesn't have to be music. It can be anything you want it to be because of course it can. Number 1, what was your first Jawn when you were younger? What was the first thing you remember being obsessed with?
Oh, my first Jawn that I was obsessed with. I wanted to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
When I grew up. Yeah. Like at, that age of like 5-6 years old, I wanted to be an astronaut. My parents bought me a telescope. I never took it out of the house, and it's not like we live like way out in the burbs somewhere. So there's still a fair amount of light pollution.
Yeah.
But whatever. I had a telescope. I had books about Mae Jamison, the first Black woman in space, and of course, her last name being similar to mine. That was the first show I was obsessed with.
That's awesome. Was science always a thing for you? I mean,
it always has been. I think as long as I can remember, I've always been interested in it, whether it's, biology, anatomy, chemistry, physics, all of them. I am a giant nerd, as much as I don't like to necessarily admit that. I am.
It's cool. You play it off well. What's your current job? Number 2, what are you into right now?
Ooh, I'm trying. Okay. I can't say I'm currently into it, but what I'm trying to get into, trying to get into gardening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my wife and I moved out to Elkins Park last summer. We have a house out here, and we actually have like grass, and there's already a little strip for a garden on the side of the house. And so we've both been trying to get our green thumb on. Her more so inside the house with indoor plants, and then me more so on the outside. I just planted some sunflower seeds, and I just started seeing some seedlings today. So I'm like super excited about it, and just trying to, make sure I keep them alive.
That's awesome. So, that's so cool.
That's my current John.
I love it. Number 3, what was your first concert?
First concert. So not counting anything as like a real little kid that I don't remember, I'm going to say Alicia Keys.
Wow.
Songs in A minor tour. Yeah. I was 15, 16.
That's awesome. Who was opening for that? Do you remember?
Oh, it's going to sound wrong, but I'm almost positive this is the answer. I think it was 50 Cent.
Really?
I can't verify that.
Yeah.
But I feel, because I'm like, when else would I have gone to see 50 Cent? So I feel like he was the opener.
That's crazy.
Somebody can fact check me on the internet and tell me if I'm right or wrong. But
please don't. I want to live in a world where that's a fact, man. Like I love it. Number 4, what was your last concert? What was the last show you went to see?
This past Saturday, I went to see the Rebirth Brass Band out in Ardmore Music Hall.
Very cool. Very cool. How was it?
No, it was incredible. Local guy Nick Greeley and his band opened up for them, and I had never heard of Nick prior to this. But best believe I have started to listen to his music now, because he put on a hell of a show. And then, Rebirth is legendary. And it was such an amazing show.
Awesome. Number 5, what is your favorite concert? What was the best show you ever went to?
Best show, that's actually an easy one. Prince.
Oh.
This was 2004. So this is the Musicology tour. And his opener was Jill Scott.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Philly in the house.
Yeah, that was an incredible show. I will just put as a very close runner up, Stevie Wonder. He had the I think it was the Songs in the Key of Life tour not too long ago. I want to say back in like maybe 2014, 2015.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw Stevie once, and he played for like 3.5 hours straight, right? And he gets done, he walks off, and he's done, And this guy in front of me was like, man, no encore. I was like, you ungrateful son of a bitch. Like, I was so angry. And then we're walking in the car, and I was like, well, he didn't play Master Blaster, but yeah.
It's also like Stevie Wonder's one of those guys where it's like, you know what, you owe us nothing. Like,
exactly.
You have given us so much that I can't even be mad when you don't give me an encore.
Yeah.
Before you go to the next one, I'm going to give another honorable mention.
Go right
ahead. I saw a show with Questlove and D'Angelo. just the two of them. It was at what's the one down like 4th and South? Is that TLA?
Yes.
Or
yes.
is that
Theater of Living Arts? Yep.
Saw them. This show, I think doors opened at like, I don't know, 9:30, 10. These guys didn't go on till like 12:30 in the morning. There's no opener or nothing. I think there might have been some, just general music playing through the PA in the background, but like there's no opener, nothing. But we were all so excited to just see it. Literally, again, it's just Questlove and D'Angelo. That was an incredible show.
That's unbelievable. You were talking about Voodoo earlier, and like that's one of my time machine hits. Like if I ever had a time machine, is Electric Lady during the recording of Voodoo, and like Water for Chocolate, and Moses' album Black on Both Sides. Like, my God, like everything that was going on in that studio at that time is a certifiable classic.
I feel like we don't talk enough about how like all of that music, like you said, it all came from the same place right around that same time. Like that whole neo soul vibe of that moment was really, it was those artists. Like it was the Soulquarians and all that. And a lot of that was just born in that little part, that little time capsule, that little moment right there.
Yeah.
Produced so much music.
And it's such a bummer. It's such a bummer that it didn't last. Like I think about like just, how incredible every single one of those people were, and just how like, I don't want to say self-destructive, but like that's just getting in your own way. It's just to not continue it on. And I miss that period of music. It was great.
I mean, that's, thinking about being from Philly at that and growing up at that time when you've got, you've got your Mos Defs and your Talib Kweli's and your D'Angelo's, but specifically for Philly, you got Music Soul Child, you've got Bilal, Vivian Green,
Jaguar
Wright, there was so much that was like tangential to this. Well, some tangential and some directly related to like that whole Soulquarians movement and everything. And it's just so much good music was coming out specifically from Philly at that time.
Yeah. And, I always like that Questlove had his kind of finger in all of it, like to see kind of his success and to watch him win that Academy Award and stuff like that. Like it's overwhelming. Like, I'm so proud of that dude.
Summer of Soul is fantastic. Oh, can I tell a quick story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Questlove story. So I went to see the Roots in, this would have been, it was my sophomore year. So this would have been 04 or maybe like early 05. And at the end of all their shows, Questlove throws his drumsticks into the crowd. And I caught one of them. And I'm super excited. Of course, again, growing up in Philly and being a drummer at the same time, I'm like, I like basically idolize Questlove. So I'm super excited I got this drumstick. I put it, go back to my dorm, and then there's like a little like ledge up by the ceiling, and I put it up there for like safekeeping. Right? And when nothing happened to it. Fast forward like 2 months later, we move out. I forget the drumstick.
No.
So I called, I'm like back home when I realized I left it there. And I actually drove down to Baltimore to see if like somebody found it, if it was in the lost and found, or no one found it. I'm devastated, right? Now, fast forward, I don't know, probably 6-7 years. I had a pair of like the Questlove brand drumsticks, and he's doing a show. He's DJing at this place called Drinkers. I don't even think it exists anymore. Drinkers West is like, I don't know, 38th and Chestnut or something like that. And I lived walking distance at the time. I go down there to the set, I'm hanging out with my friends or whatever. It's 2 a.m. They're all like, all right, we're going home. I'm like, no. You don't understand. I have Questlove drumsticks in my bag. I'm getting him to sign these drumsticks. And I literally hung out till probably about 3:15 in the morning, waiting for him to come out, and just was like, "Oh my God, Questlove, can you sign these drumsticks?" And like, I think about it now, and I'm like, he was probably so fucking annoyed with me, but I don't care because I got him to sign those drumsticks now, and I did not lose these.
Very nice, very nice. So I gotta ask, did you ever post on okplayer.com?
I did not. No.
Okay. I was so I used to post on there a lot, and on there, Quest used to later in the life of the website or whatnot, he used to post the week's guests for Fallon and would ask for, suggestions for walk-on music and stuff like that. And I got really deep into that, and a bunch of songs played and all that. So I was going to the Tonight Show in the audience, and I just left a message. I go, "Hey Quest, by the way, I'll be at the Tonight Show taping today. If you want to give me a shout out, no big deal." Right. So we're there, the show happens, and then the warm-up guy comes out and he goes, "Hey, how was everything? Did everybody enjoy it?" And everybody's clapping, and everybody's like kind of, he's like doing his spiel, and Quest walks over to the guy and like whispers to him, and the guy goes in the mic, he goes, I used to post as Captain Nish. And he goes, "Is the captain in the house?" And I was like, "Oh, what?" And he was like, "Quest wants you to come down here." So I go down on the Tonight Show stage. He hands me 4 drumsticks. It's so funny. He said, so he gives me 4 drumsticks, and I walk back to my seat, and I'm like, I don't even understand what just happened. Like, but
that is amazing.
But yeah, so drumsticks, man. And, like, of course, he is a fantastic drummer. We
went off the rails.
Number 6. Who have you never seen live that you wish you would have? They can be living or dead.
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah,
Jimi Hendrix. I wish I could go see a Jimi Hendrix show, man.
Absolutely. Number 7. Name an unappreciated, John. Name something you wish had some more shine to it.
Sound guys.
Yeah.
Sound guys, I don't know if they're necessarily unappreciated, but they're definitely underappreciated. Those guys who sit in the back and make us sound good on stage, even though sometimes we don't know what we're talking about, and we tell them to boost some level, and it's like, I could do that, but then you're going to get feedback. And then you like do it anyway, and then he does it, and then you get feedback, and he's like, "I told you." Yeah. Or, you got a set with 5 guys in the band, and then you let a random flute player come up, and there's like, well, now I got to adjust the mics for this guy. Like, shout out to sound guys.
I love it. That is a beautiful answer. And I absolutely agree. Like, they don't get enough love. They do not. Like, and probably because like a good sound guy, you don't even know exists because he's just making everything sound beautiful. Right.
That's a good point.
Perfect answer. Number 8, what's your favorite album?
Oh, that is so tough. I'm going to cheat and give you 2. One I mentioned already was Voodoo. And 2, from that same era, I Just Want to Sing. It's Music Soul Child's debut album.
Yes.
Absolute classic.
I love it. That's a perfect one. Number 9, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they release, even if you have to be apologetic for it.
I'm going to say Anderson .Paak.
Yeah.
I think when I first discovered Anderson .Paak, it was when Malibu came out. So he had other works before that. And so I, listened to Malibu a billion times, then went back and listened to the previous stuff. And then everything he's put out since, it's like, all right, yep. Just feed, inject it in my veins. Yeah.
I don't want to say I was late, but what my entrance was shortly after Malibu came out. Did you see the Tiny Desk he did on NPR? I was just like, holy shit. Like, what a phenomenal artist.
If you haven't heard it, there's an EP. I wish I had looked up the name, but there's an EP he put out with all covers. And it's amazing. I gotta see if I can find it real quick. But it's this really awesome EP. It's like probably 5 tracks of just some covers that he put out.
Unbelievable. Like what anything of the...
Oh, here it is. It's called Cover Art.
Okay.
The one that stood at Seven Nation Army. There's a really great rendition of Seven Nation Army that he does on there. Yeah,
I am going to check that out as soon as we finish this out. Like I gotta hear that. That sounds phenomenal. The 10th and final question of the day. What's your favorite Jawn of all time? What do you love?
Ooh, that's tough. I'm gonna pick one song, which is hard because it's like, what's your one favorite song? But the one that comes to mind is a song called Rising Up by The Roots. It's also got Wale and Chrisette Michele on there. It's not, I wouldn't even say it's like their best song, but it's probably my favorite of theirs. It's just a really just fun track. It's actually got this great like DC Go-Go vibe to it as well. And it's just the song just, it feels like, summer. It feels like great weather and good times, and can't beat that.
That's awesome. I respect that 100%. I literally feel like, when people find bands like from the 60s and stuff like that, and like someone like kind of does like a reissue of all their stuff, and everyone's like, why were they not the number one band ever? That's how I feel about the Roots. Like they've just consistently put music out, brilliant music out. And they're one of my unappreciated Jawns. I feel like like I said, Questlove has an Oscar, so I guess he can't be that unappreciated at this point. But it's a long time coming, and it is well overdue.
Yeah, it's like, unless you're from Philly or unless you're like a true hip hop head, I feel like you're probably not giving the Roots the credit that they deserve.
It's so true, and same goes for Black Thought. Like just a lyrical beast.
Should be in everyone's top 5.
Yes,
hands down.
Yep, cannot disagree. I love it. So the album Late Bloomer coming out May 6th. You got those shows lined up again. Tell these people again those dates. The one on the night of the 6th, right?
Yeah, so one on the 6th itself, that's at the Royal in Glenside. You can go online to the Royal Glenside and get tickets. And then I'll be sitting in with the Smooth Show at Time on Friday, May 20th. Got some other potential shows in the works. So hopefully by the time you hear this and then go online and check me out, those will be posted too.
That's awesome. So if these fine folks listening to my show would like to find you on the internet, what's the best way to track you down? What's your socials and your web?
Yeah, you can go to davidjamisonmusic.com. It's Jamison with an I, not an E like the whiskey. I'll give you the IG, even though I'm hardly ever on there, but I feel like I'm almost like contractually obligated to do so. It's David J on the 1. It's the number 1. And Facebook, same thing, David J on the 1.
That is awesome. David, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for creating not just beautiful art, but just an incredible song in Spanish, Jawn. I love it, and I very much appreciate you coming on the show today.
Absolutely, man. It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
My thanks again to David for joining me on the show today. Be sure to check out David's new album, Late Bloomer, coming out on May 6th. You can find more of David's music by visiting www.davidjamisonmusic.com. Find David on Instagram at DavidJ and on Facebook at www.facebook.com/DavidJ. And you can catch David Jamison celebrating his album release live at the Royal in Glenside on May 6th. If you haven't already, I'm going to need you to go ahead and subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from. And as always, if you want to earn yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for Citizenship of the World, you can do just that by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for articles, merchandise, and links to all of the previous episodes of this podcast. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/yothat'smyjawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Yo That's My Jawn and search Yo That's My Jawn on the YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out, and touch some Jawn. That's all I got for you today. You know, man, things are pretty great, and I hope they're great for you as well. And if they're not, and this finds you at a moment where you may doubt yourself or you can't find yourself believing it will ever get better, just know that I love you and I believe in you and I am here for you. Thank you for spending some time with me. Blue skies. Until next time, everybody.
Hey yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by Phil Tyler Music featuring Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Natalie Runkle, and the incredibly brilliant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com. Or you can leave an audio message for us and possibly hear yourself on a future episode by visiting anchor.fm/ytmj/message. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure and shout to the world, yo, that's my Jawn.